and welcome to this Leadership Spotlight session at India Energy Week. It's a pleasure to have you here as we dive into one of the most dynamic and consequential energy transitions underway through our topic of discussion, this wind and solar opportunity, realizing the dual potential of scaling India's renewables outlook. There is an energy transition underway as we speak, with wind and solar technologies playing a key role in it. More than 90% of the new capacity additions are coming from these technologies globally. India is also a frontrunner, where last year alone, we saw about 49 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity added, including hydro. Next year, which is already here, in 2026 as well, we see another 50 gigawatts of capacity expected to be added in India. This is driven by the cost economics as well as economies of scale, as well as policy. There are targets of over 600 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel capacity to be added by the year of fiscal year 2032, which will take India to about 68% share of non-fossil fuels in its power mix by that year. With this scaling up, however, there come challenges which we need to address through policy, through industry initiative, and investments. In our session today, we will be discussing some of those challenges as well as solutions to them to drive the next stage of India's energy transition. I would first like to introduce our esteemed panelists. We are joined by Mr. Santosh Kumar Sarangi, Secretary, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy for Government of India. Mr. Sarit Maheshwari, CEO at NTPC Green Energy Limited. I think he has dropped off. My apologies. Mr. Gyanesh Chaudhary, Chairman and MD at Vikram Solar, Mr. Erik Solheim, President, International Advisory Board at Green Hydrogen India, and Mr. Aditya Pyasi, CEO at Indian Wind Turbine Manufacturers Association. And it's a pleasure for me, Ankita Chauhan, to be moderating today's session. I am Director at Global Cleantech Supply Chain Solutions at Wood Mackenzie. So to kick off today's session, I would want to first come to you, Mr. Sarangi, and ask you about what kind of policy drivers are now essential now that we have already achieved commercialization of wind and solar technologies. What would the next stage of this energy transition would look like in the current climate where there are geopolitical constraints? There is emphasis on building not only accelerated renewable deployment, but also build resilient supply chains. So in that way, how do you see India progressing in this direction?
As you correctly pointed out, the initial set of policy challenges before India were to rapidly expand deployment, and we have now scaled up from about 2 gigawatt of solar deployment to about 137 gigawatt by now. And similarly, from about 25 gigawatt of wind in 2014 to about 55 gigawatt now. And if you look at the extent of total non-fossil fuel installation, it has gone up to 267 gigawatt. So going forward, in our ambition to reach 500 gigawatt by 2030, we can't keep focusing only on capacity expansion, but also at the way in which we are able to balance the grid integration challenges and use of technology for smoothing the integration of RE into the entire grid system. So in this context, a lot of our future policies will, current as well as future policies, are going to focus on ways of effective grid integration and also address the supply chain resilience. So in this context, the PLI that we had done for the entire solar value chain is something that we are following up on. And in addition to that, there are a couple of areas in which the dependence on critical mineral technologies is crucial. And to that extent, we are working closely with the National Critical Mineral Mission to ensure that some of the critical mineral related technologies, the refining, processing happens in India. And in the entire value chain of solar and wind, how do we attain a substantial level of indigenization so that import dependence on particular territories or particular geographies substantially declines. So on this, we will be working more and more to ensure that ingot wafer polysilicon manufacturing takes off in a big manner in India. Similarly, in wind turbine, we have achieved a substantial indigenization in nacelle as well as tower manufacturing. But going forward, generator, gearbox, special bearings, in all of these special castings which are required for wind turbines, we will be working and seeing how policies could be oriented for ensuring more and more domestic manufacturing. In the third area of policy focus on greater adoption of RE by citizens, our focus on schemes like PM Suryaghar, PM Kusum is going to be there. And as more and more distributed RE comes into picture, the discoms will also have to be empowered to handle a large injection of RE in a distributed manner. So, in that context, initiatives like digital twin, where discoms have a clear visibility of congestion in different transmission lines within their jurisdiction, and implementation of renewable energy management system, distributed renewable energy management system is going to be a priority for us. So these are some of the policy initiatives which are going to drive RE expansion in future.
So, coming to you, Mr. Chaudhary, Mr. Sarangi talked about vertical integration of supply chains. So, India already has built significant capacity in terms of module manufacturing and is now accelerating towards building reliance in cells. How do you see the further vertical integration of India's supply chains, and what role Vikram Solar can play in that?
Thank you so much. I think Sir has really put it clearly in terms of what India is aiming for. I think what I feel is that early adoption for India was also a blessing, and also it raised some gaps in terms of where we were heading. While initially there was a capacity constraint, and then we had a lot of import challenges associated with not having a defined ecosystem. And I'm talking early 2000s, when we were really building the sector. In 2010, we had the Jawaharlal Nehru Solar Mission come out, and then we quadrupled the target as soon as the new government took shape in 2014. So the appetite has been significantly growing. However, the latent mismatches that we saw with respect to dependence on imports versus creating our domestic ecosystem. Subsequently, the government policies, I would say that while there were policies around creation of the manufacturing base with the PLI and the various schemes, there was a also consistent focus on building the markets, like the PM Kusum, as Sir said. So all of this put together gave India, the position of today being the third largest, soon to be the second largest renewable deployer. And I think with a clear focus on creating consistent front and back-ended value chains, creating the ecosystem, building some of these policy initiatives to support that. India does not need capacity purely, and this Sarangi sir also iterated. We need access to technology, larger access to global markets now, because we are making in India, and we are making the best in India. I have no doubt about that. I have personally been in this sector for over 2 decades, And I've seen the transition. We used to struggle for manpower, we used to struggle for efficient resources, and today the world is looking at us as a as an alternative to China, and we must capture this. This is a huge opportunity. So, and Vikram is here. We are a part of this for the long haul, and we will support all the ambitions that India has.
Great.
Thank you.
So, coming to you, Mr. Solheim, I would like to frame this as India is right now looking at building and deepening of its supply chains. What role can policy play in that? And also, what lessons can India learn from someone like China, who has deep expertise in that? What kind of lessons we can bring in over here and to build on the supply chains, as well as not only for meeting the local supply chains, but also become a regional hub of manufacturing?
Thank you so much for having me. And first of all, I really like to congratulate everyone in the meeting room, and in particular the ministry, because India is now the third largest provider of renewable energy in the world. I'm pretty confident you will also surpass the United States of America to be the second largest producer of renewable energy in the world. And that's such a fantastic positive achievement. Of course, we should set targets to do even more in the future, but we can also congratulate ourselves with this massive achievement. And I've traveled quite a lot across India and seen some of these facilities, and they are remarkable. Let me just point to one. In the state of Andhra Pradesh, the Greenco Group has now developed the first integrated solar, wind, and hydropower as battery facility in the world. It works like that in daytime, and because Andhra Pradesh is blessed with the sun, you pump up the water from the lower to the higher reservoir in the dam. This is not a hydropower plant, there's no river, it's just an artificial battery. And then you release the water at night, and then you get 24 hours energy, 365 days a year. Whether the sun is shining or not, you have the hydropower as the battery. These, just to understand the size of this, I just came here from Sri Lanka. That one plant in Andhra Pradesh is larger than the entire grid in Sri Lanka, a nation with 23 million inhabitants. So this is big, big, big. There is nothing like that in the United States of America. There's nothing like this in Europe. Only China has something which can be compared with the development in Andhra Pradesh. And that's just one shining example. Solar energy is now the cheapest energy anywhere in the world. If you switch from coal to solar, you save money. Back in the days, it was an enormous cost. You needed to be very, very rich to afford solar. Well, now you save money doing it. I was in UP speaking to some people who were running small green mills. In the past, they paid 40,000 Indian rupees a month for diesel. Now they pay 15,000 Indian rupees a month for solar. Well, you don't need to be an environmentalist to want to make that switch. You just do it for your family and for your business and for the community. It's simply good business. So solar will be the dominant power in the 21st century, but added wind, hydropower, geothermal, maybe nuclear, other will be added, but solar will be the dominant. But let me then point to three major areas which we need to think about. One is government regulations. That's critical everywhere. Without the right government regulation, every renewable energy will flop. In Europe, frankly, we struggle a lot simply to get the permits. The company cannot get the permit, it cannot establish a solar farm or a wind farm. And that system is now so horribly bureaucratic, takes so long time that it slows down the process enormously. It takes much longer time to get the permit than to construct the renewable energies. These need to change, and Prime Minister Modi, of course, has done fantastic work in India to cut red tape, but more can be done to make the government system and the policy working even more efficiently. Second is that renewable energy demands a lot of land. The largest facility in India is in the Kavda Desert in Gujarat. Adani is building that. That's the absolute perfect place because it's a salty desert. There's nothing there. No one was living there. There's not even a straw. There's not even a camel, not even a sheep, nothing. So very easy to build a large plant. But of course, you cannot build that plant in Bihar or in UP. There simply is no land available to build something like that. It can happen in Gujarat, it can happen in Rajasthan, maybe in Madhya Pradesh, but it can not happen in the heavily populated parts of India. There you need to integrate with the local people in a completely different way, maybe building it in the agriculture, building on smaller plots, and everywhere working with the local people. If we don't do that, we will always fail. The local people don't see benefits of our installation, we will fail. That was the massive mistake we did back in the days in my nation, Norway. We thought rolling out windmills was just a practical issue, and we failed to consult with the local people, and all of a sudden they said, no thanks, we don't want this. And of course, there is no way you can send in the army or the police to force this upon people. You need to consult. So I think a key lessons learned, at least from Europe, is there must be windfalls for the local community. When you build something in their community, make sure that some of the economic surplus from that ends up in that community. And the third big issue is China. China is now so totally dominant on everything green that the rest of the world need to factor in how do we relate to that. China is 60% of everything. Solar, wind, hydropower, electric batteries, electric cars, metros, high-speed rail, whatever you can mention, China is at the minimum 60%. In the solar industry, China is probably 90% globally. In batteries, it's 60, 70%, and the batteries which are not made in China are nearly all made in Korea. So it's China and Korea totally dominating global battery business. There's not one battery factory in Europe. Hardly any in the United States of America. It's only China and Korea. And this means that if you want to go green, the relationship to China is critical. The head of Airbus, this huge European airplane company, just said that Europe needs to make 1,000 joint ventures with China. That's the only way we can get the technology to go green fast enough. And India also needs to contemplate its relationship to China, how we can bring in Chinese companies, how we can make joint ventures, but of course make that as a platform for them producing and creating their jobs in India. Make it in India, as Prime Minister Modi says, but you
Thanks,
cannot
Erik.
hardly do it in this.
Can I interrupt you for a
Yeah,
second?
I'll just last sentence. You can hardly do that without China, but of course the focus must be how it can happen in India.
Totally agree with you that timely permits can really help in moving forward the acceleration of project execution, and we have a lot to learn from China in terms of how we can build that momentum. Now I would request Mr. Aditya Pyasi to add the perspective from the wind side. Wind has had a long journey in India starting from the 90s onwards and has seen several phases of building of capacity as well as manufacturing. Now, as we sit in 2026, there is a further deepening of supply chain is happening at the component level, where Indian manufacturers and Indian industry is not only meeting the local demand, but is also seen as a important stakeholder globally. So in that view, how do you think is the future look like for the wind industry and how it can leverage on the global increasing demand?
Thanks, Ankita, and thanks for having me on this esteemed panel. I think a very pertinent question, specifically from the perspective that manufacturing and jobs is at the center stage in midst of a geopolitical storm that we are living through. And I firmly believe that in this manufacturing, in this energy transition wherein manufacturing would give the jobs, wherein AI is coming, and geopolitically we are in a turmoil, policy is the first line of defense. And I'm really happy to see that within the last year, I think we have made tremendous strides, thanks to the ministry who has taken the leadership, and we have made tremendous strides in that policy and decision making. For example, we have seen ALMM solar, ALMM wind, as in for manufacturing in India, to the extent that some time back people used to think whether manufacturing can be done here. Now all the manufacturers are looking at where to set up the shop in India. We have traversed that mostly in one and a half years. Second, leadership at such a level that even GST reforms have happened because of that representations. And though we might have seen in the media that the impact is only 10 to 15 paisa per unit, but let me tell you, I've seen distribution at a granular level. The industry may not get that much of benefit of reduction in GST. The entire benefit of it would be passed to the domestic consumers, and 50 to 60 paisa of reduction in tariff might happen to the domestic consumers, which is a big thing for a country like India. Third, a silent revolution is happening. All this domestic content thing that we are talking about, at the policy level, the ministry has decided that we'll have the portal which will track the domestic content. We are working closely on that, and I think the supply chain will get a lot of confidence because of that. We are even deploying AI in the development of that platform. So I think very futuristic steps are being taken. But important thing is all these things are happening while there is limited scope or authority available under the present act. That probably needs to be looked at. When this act, which is the point of start for all the policy making, it was designed at a time when deregulation of generation and open access was the need of the hour. Today, energy transition and promotion of renewable energy is the need of the hour. So a very pertinent time that the government takes a look at how this act is to be modified. There is a bill there. We are also working with the government. Substantial powers and authority should be given for renewable energy decision making and regulation making. I think that bridge, if we cross, I think 2030 and 2047 targets would be a matter of time, and automatically capacity will give boost to the manufacturing and supply chain will fall in place, as it is already falling in place in last 1.5 years. That's my take.
Thank you, Aditya. The point that you touched upon, that there is an impact on costs. So there would be a certain place where all of these costs will start to transfer downstream into the PPA prices. So in that case, how do you see the challenges with creation of demand with higher PPA prices if that happens? What kind of risks do you see? Mr. Sarangi, I would ask you this question about PPA's bankability. In last year, we saw that there are challenges that we are seeing in capacity which has been bid out, is struggling to find buyers, and therefore has remained under development despite having been bid out. So what kind of challenges do you see in terms of bringing out tenders where PPAs are signed timely, those challenges are addressed, as well as the capacity to absorb higher prices in the system?
Some of the bids that you are referring to where PPA has not been signed were actually part of this drive to do a 50 gigawatt bidding by the renewable energy implementation agencies without actually taking into account the demand from the discoms. So when we went to the discoms with vanilla solar or vanilla wind, we saw that the appetite for vanilla solar, which is generating electricity during only the peak solar hours or during the solar hours only, was not very high among many of the discoms. So we have asked our REIs to tweak the requirements by taking into account the demand profile of the discoms and accordingly float bids. So you would see more and more FDRE bids, RTC bids, solar plus storage bids, and solar wind hybrid profiles coming up in future. And if you look at some of the recent bids which SECI has done in the recent past, is solar plus 4 hours of storage, solar plus 6 hours of storage, where they have discovered only 3 rupees 12 paise per unit price. And these are what is being required by the discoms. So we will have to work on that. And most of these bids will now match the demand profile of the discoms, and accordingly bids will be done. In addition, there are many factors which have also driven down cost. The technology in cells and modules has led to higher efficiency modules coming into picture. With the recent R&D with regard to perovskite, we anticipate that if that succeeds, perovskite solar modules come into being, which are likely in another 2 to 3 years, 4 years, the unit price can come down to as low as 1 rupee 40 paise per unit from the current 2 rupees 40 paise per unit. Similarly, if you look at battery energy storage systems, the cost has gone down by about 89% in last 1 decade. And if you look at last 1 year, it has gone down by more than 40%. So a combination of technological innovation along with the reduction in storage cost has enabled the solar plus battery energy storage system cost to be low. And from that point of view, what Mr. Erik Solheim was pointing out, that solar is going to be the dominant player within RE, but more and more FDRE, RTC would require a judicious combination of solar, wind, and battery energy storage system. And I believe that in course of time, the combination of solar, wind, and battery energy storage system would be much, much cheaper than the new coal-based power and would prove to be one of the most stable, reliable alternative to coal-based power. So this base load argument for coal is also going to dilute in course of time with greater induction of battery energy storage system. And keeping that in view, India's focus on promoting battery energy storage system, both the prevalent varieties like lithium ion as well as sodium ion, as well as flow batteries and long duration energy storage system is going to be high in the next couple of years.
Great. Coming to you, Mr. Chaudhary, there has been so far till 2025 a race to the bottom, as Mr. Sarangi pointed out, that component prices have been coming down significantly. But now that trend seems to have reverted. Polysilicon prices are going up, lithium prices are going up in the global markets. How does the manufacturing industry in India is going to take that into account, how those costs are going to be absorbed, and what kind of impact do you see here at the prices in the market and the demand as well?
Thank you so much. I think, while localization of solar panels as well as some amount of cell capacity has made us a little more resilient, but more than 80% wafer and polysilicon are still coming from China or around. Other than that, the kind of commodity prices swing that we are seeing, how it impacts copper, silver, all of that. I think all of this has led to this price modification. While we all know that India is a frugal nation, we want everything the best, but also the cheapest, which is absolutely the way to do it, because we are a large nation and we have a lot to achieve. However, in this entire volatile scenario, what is missing is probably some sort of standardizations. in terms of what is it that is expected from manufacturers like us, and how can we make sure that we deliver the best um, over a long period of time, notwithstanding the volatility. You see, in the last 20 years, I've seen probably 20 such cycles. And as the appetite grows, not just India but globally, as the appetite is growing, so the volatility cycles are also impacting much more. And to be able to absorb that, I think some sort of stabilization exercise needs to be done, so that large capacities can definitely see the light of day, rather than we look at a lot of bidding and a lot of work happening, but without upstream resilience, building cohesive ecosystems for import substitution, and therefore also creating markets in the export scenario. Both of these will help mitigate some of these volatile scenarios. Price is an absolute function, and I think in this current scenario we are seeing, apart from obviously commodity prices, we see China taking some serious positions in the global market, where they have restricted capacities, they've restricted production to ensure that there is some sort of semblance to price standardization within their framework. They have removed certain subsidies which were harming manufacturers like us to be present in the global markets. So all of this has made some hardening of prices, but I feel that over a long term these will be improved, but also the market should be able to absorb these changes, because these are real, and these are not they should not be considered as manufacturers trying to make hay while the sun shines. That's not how it is. These are real challenges that across the value chain everyone is facing, and we have to face them.
Definitely. There are real costs to the project implementation, and upstream resilience is going to help us in going forward in addressing some of these challenges. Erik, coming to you, we have seen solar and wind has largely achieved commercialization. There is a great role for these technologies to play in the future of energy transition, but now we are entering in another stage of it, where we need further deepening with adoption of further clean tech. So what are those options that globally are being discussed for adoption, for deepening of energy transition beyond wind and solar, and what does that next phase look like?
First of all, the role of government is absolutely essential in all this. Unless you have a strong government, it frames the market, set the rules, you will fail. And also, government has a key role in making clusters, offering opportunities for different businesses to locate in the same area, bring in maybe research institutes, universities into the same area, so you get an innovative process. Without a strong government, this cannot happen. And mind you, this is one of the advantages of India. In Europe, they are changing the ministers by the day. We have the three main nations of Europe. No one knows whether the prime minister or president will survive this year. It's a rotating circus like that, and that, of course, makes no leadership possible. Prime Minister Modi has been in head of India for the last 12 years. My prediction is that he will be re-elected next time there is an election also, if he runs for another term. Even those who do not like the BJP at least should realize that these create a certain level of stability and leadership, which is absolutely critical for a nation who want to grow. So the role, I really want to emphasize the role of the government, even of course with nearly all of the innovations will happen in the market, and it's a strong government with a market-based economy. That's the way forward for everyone. Solar will be the dominant energy, and that's not a matter of ideology, it's a matter of price. While there may be fluctuations, the cost of solar energy is now 5% of what it was in 2005, maybe 10% of what it was in 2010. So it's an enormous, enormous, enormous drop, and that's why it will be dominant. But all the others will add, and you need batteries. Hydropower can play the role as batteries, as I described for Andhra Pradesh, but there will be 10 such facilities like the one in Andhra Pradesh by 2030 in India. Greenco will make 5, and Adani will make 5. At least that's the plan, and I think they will manage that. That's using hydropower as battery, adding artificially man-made batteries made by humans, and adding to this, green hydrogen will also play a role because hydrogen is also a way of storing energy. And hydrogen, I don't think will play a major role in cars, for example. They will be all of them will be electric. But for aviation, for shipping, and for steel and other industries which really need high temperature, then their hydrogen will be important. And again, that cannot happen without government, because investors will not invest in these sectors unless they believe there is a demand. But of course, there will not be any demand unless someone is producing the green hydrogen. And green hydrogen is not meaningful in small scale. Solar is meaningful both in enormous scale and in small scale. Green hydrogen can only work in big scale, and that's why the role of the government to bring together the main businesses, set the rules, and initiate the process of matching demand and supply is absolutely critical for development of green hydrogen.
Definitely. Coming to you, Aditya. So, wind for wind technologies, what do you see at the next stage? We are seeing globally that larger and bigger turbines are being built, but for India, we have average turbine sizes which are much lower so far. So is there further acceleration towards larger turbines in India as well, which meet the requirements of the wind speeds that we have? And also, I would like to ask you about offshore wind. How do you see the momentum towards offshore wind in India right now?
Yeah, very pertinent questions, Sankita. I think as far as sizes of turbines are concerned, I wish my friend Dr. Katyal was here, and I think he keeps speaking all the time the right thing, that the size of turbine in India is to be designed as per the speed of wind in India to harness the maximum CUF. And the wind speeds in India are not very high, in the range of 5, 7, 8, usually like that, except some places in Tamil Nadu where we have category 1 sites. So rather than focusing only on the size, usually size gives higher CUF, better usage of land, but there is a need for optimization. So I think 3.5, 4, 5 we are reaching. I think it's good. Need not be in a rush to just increase the size for the sake of increasing size. Further studies on twisting of how much twist the blade should have, how much curve the blade should have, all those things, and how sturdy it is as with respect to the Indian climate, etc. That is more important. Finally, we have to harness the highest CUF, as close to the bed's limit as we can. And as far as offshore is concerned, I think we've had multiple rounds of discussion in both in the state of Gujarat as well as Tamil Nadu. We are working closely with the state governments. That is one of my key priorities, to reach out to the states. I think in Gujarat, we had a very good discussion, and I think my fellow panelists are there in the audience also, that the wind speeds in Gujarat are, even in offshore, are less than 10, mostly 8-ish kind of. So starting with near shore would be the best thing to do. There is a 3,000 megawatt potential for this wind. 50 megawatt pilot project has been probably started by Gujarat GPCL. That is the way. That way we will get the prize for the first project. So I think near shore we should start with, and then dabble, at least in Gujarat, further with offshore if possible. Tamil Nadu, yes, there is potential. I think there is a need to invite more and more uh, pure play players. And I've been reaching out to international fraternity. We have had a MOU with Stiftung Offshore, Germany. We're working closely if we can have some pure play developers coming on board. You know, policy and everything we are trying. There is a VGF given, but I think the developers are still not there. We need to have some collaboration from international fraternity to make the way through. Thanks.
Definitely. So with this question, I would like to come back to Mr. Sarangi again, that we heard about all these new technologies, green hydrogen, offshore wind, electrolyzers in India. So how is MNRE looking at this space of new technologies? And we saw that there were a few tenders in the past for offshore wind, which have not yet been closed. So how do you see India can help in kicking off of these technologies, and what are the challenges in their adoption? Is it infrastructure? Is it business models? And where those solutions lie in enabling those technologies?
I think in all of this, both in terms of facilitating infrastructure development, in ensuring policy roadmaps, in creating incentives for the private sector to have that confidence to get into a particular area. So our National Green Hydrogen Mission aims at doing that. And when it set out a roadmap of 5 million tons, we did that tender, or we did that bidding for green ammonia, which was part of domestic market creation effort by the government, where we assured that 7,24,000 tons of green ammonia will be supplied to fertilizer plants. Similarly, we are also working with our oil refineries to ensure that 2 lakh tons of green hydrogen is consumed by them, which will give our domestic players enough assurance to do their FIDs. So we understand that an industry can't really develop only depending on an export opportunity, but would also require some degree of domestic market offtake. And to that extent, market creation is something, whether it is in solar and wind power or whether it is in green hydrogen, we have been working. Similarly, derivatives of green hydrogen in terms of methanol, SAF, green ammonia have huge opportunities. And we are working with multiple ministries, Ministry of Port and Shipping, Ministry of Transport, to ensure its uses in mobility, Ministry of Steel to ensure its uses in hard to abate sectors. In addition, use of latest technologies in transmission to lay transmission lines quickly so that evacuation of electricity happens quickly is something that we will have to work on. As Mr. Pyasi was saying, the wind energies face a lot of issues with regard to land acquisition, ROWs. So in this, looking at transmission towers like monopoles, which have a lesser footprint, is something that will have to be expedited in the Indian context. And also working with the state governments to have quicker policies with regard to the rates which will be disbursed for land acquisition is something that we are doing in association with our industry leaders. And going forward, use of more and more digital technology, AI based forecasting models, especially for the wind sector, because forecasting, proper forecasting is required for a proper scheduling, which has to be given to the grid managers. And also working on India energy stack, where a lot of our consumers today will become big prosumers tomorrow. So the power trading is going to be hugely decentralized in future, and getting our systems ready to a decentralized power trading model where I can sell to my neighbors, I can tomorrow get electricity from my neighbor, is something that India will have to prepare on. So in multiple directions, use of technology is being expedited, whether it is in terms of deployment, whether it is in terms of transmission lines, or whether it is in terms of enabling discoms to use DERMS kind of facilities or use of India Energy Stack using AI enabled technologies.
Definitely. Coming back to manufacturing now, manufacturing is very energy intensive, and for adding new capacities, you need significant investments as well. So, how, probably this question for both Mr. Chaudhary and Mr. Pyasi, that how are we addressing the challenges with respect to the availability of the infrastructure, as well as energy requirement and financing for building more capacity in India? First, Mr. Chaudhary.
I can go first. So as far as the appetite for setting up large manufacturing infrastructure goes, it's just going through the roof, I feel. Uh, we ourselves are setting up a 200-acre project with 15 gigawatt of integrated manufacturing facility over a period of the next 2 years. And the challenges generally what we see and we face on the ground is, available of common infrastructure. Now, if you look at cell manufacturing, there is a huge consumption of water. There is a huge requirement of water treatment. Now, 10 years ago, I was at a industrial campus in Germany. It's called the Solar Valley, where there were a lot of solar manufacturing companies all integrated. So a lot of infrastructure was commonly placed. Like there was a common ETP, effluent treatment. There were common gas facilities. There were common, tapping in and tapping out facilities. Those sort of things help industries plug and play. When we are talking about technology in solar, specifically in the current context, we see that there is anyway there is upgrades and modifications, like sir talked about perovskite. Well, obviously that is 3 to 4 years away, as he also said, but there are other upgrades and changes that we are constantly doing to keep ourselves up to speed with the global standards. Now, to also worry about the external environment at such a great extent is somewhat time consuming. So when India wants to pivot towards latest technology, why is it taking longer? It's taking longer because the industrial ecosystem, the industrial clusters, the hubs are not prepared for such advanced manufacturing technologies and creating a common infrastructure in place. Now, as far as power is concerned, I think as far downstream solar cell and module, probably the power consumption is still manageable. As we go upstream into wafer and polysilicon, power is a raw material. Now, how many states in India are able to offer the cheapest source of energy compared to Chinese prices? Now, we want to compete with the Chinese prices, but our raw material, which is power, is not competitive. So either we integrate our own solar power plants to power these manufacturing plants, that adds huge cost to the overall capital outlay. But without that, competing is difficult. I want to say almost impossible. So these sort of ecosystems will definitely enhance our speed to market, which is absolutely essential in today's time. Thank you.
Thank you. We are just about over time, so please keep your comments concise.
I'll just try to sum up in 2 minutes. So, a very pertinent point, Ganeshi, and I think the need of the hour for Indian manufacturing is to look at availability of raw materials. And as Erik rightly pointed out, he's saying 60% of all raw materials are with China. I would go to the extent of 80%. I've handled commodities for a long period of time, and I think for all commodities, we just look at China. Very important to have the availability of steel, special graded steel, whether we can give the steel industry the necessary incentives to develop it, otherwise we will be stopped. Carbon fiber, which is very important for the wind industry. I think we are totally dependent on China. Existing facilities have also gone away in India. Third, raw materials like copper. I think we are totally unprepared. All stocks are either in US, and China has the capability of manufacturing. In fact, India has gone down by 50% in manufacturing production of copper. So these are some key things. We are lucky to have Sarangi sir, who has been with the Ministry of Commerce and he understands, so I need not speak more. I think if this is addressed, we will safeguard ourselves. As I said, policy is the first line of defense that we can do.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pyasi. Erik, finally, to close with you, can you please share in very concise manner in 1 minute about the access to finance and infrastructures and its role in addressing the need for energy transition?
Look, my final comment is very simple. We are at a turning point in human history. Not everyone realizes, but history will see this as an absolute turning point. Last year, the entire world, produced more solar and wind than we produced coal energy. Last year, the use of coal went down in both China and India. That happened during COVID, yes, for bad reasons. But last year it happened for good reasons, which of course is that the renewables now dominant market. In the past, if a nation wanted to develop, there was only one way. It was fossil fuels. No nation could develop and make their population affluent. No nation can bring everyone out of poverty without fossil fuels. But that was the past. Now, and that's what Prime Minister Modi is speaking about all the time, there's one way forward, how to combine ecology and economy, make it one, how to bring every Indian out of poverty, how to make every Indian a part of the wide middle class, but doing it by going green. And our parents and grandparents didn't have that option, but now it's available. And that's the enormous opportunity now for India, and that's why we can end up here being very optimistic. This will be the future of India, and India will just move ahead, combining ecology and economy, and becoming very soon the second largest renewable power in the world.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think India is at a very cusp of leapfrogging towards the next phase of energy transition with all the technology options that are available. We didn't touch upon a lot of the areas which I would have loved to talk about, but we are over time. So I would like to thank my esteemed panelists for their comments and their knowledgeable views about this sector. With this, I would like to close. We talked about policy, economics, we talked about infrastructure and financing challenges and the road ahead for energy transition and its role in the global decarbonization. So thank you everyone for listening in.
Thank you. Great moderation.